A couple weeks ago, I made a video talking about how I do, my Bible studies. What are the basic things that I recommend you do? And then I actually, I made a follow-up video to that, a more in-depth version, at least how I would do it, particularly from the reference point of someone who, you still, let's say you don't know any Greek or Hebrew or anything like that, and you want to do a deeper study, the method that I use, right? And but one of the things that kind of lies underneath that, right, the whole world of Bible study in general, there's a topic, and it's a topic that I wanted to bring up, and I briefly mentioned it in the first video. And it has to do, honestly, with one of the single greatest pieces of advice I've ever received in my life. And it came from a man named Chuck Missler. Well, at the time, this was about 5 years ago, I was going through listening to a sermon series by Chuck Missler, and he was teaching through Isaiah. And it was one of those things that, as I was listening to him teach through this thing, it rocked my world in the sense that he was so passionate about what he was talking about that you cannot help but feel that same passion, right? And it doesn't matter what it is. You could be someone who works at a button factory, and you could explain to me how you make buttons. But if you're passionate about it, right, then I cannot help but be interested in what you're saying, because your passion is what shows where your love is, right? Well, back to Chuck Missler. I was listening to him teach through Isaiah, and he's bringing up all these things, and you can tell, have you ever heard of the iceberg theory? I believe R.C. Sproul was the one who came up with that, or at least that's where I heard it from. It's the theory that if you have a teacher, right, teaching through something, whatever subject is, in our context, it's the Bible. When you have someone that's teaching through something, right, it's called the iceberg theory, which is an iceberg, you only see the tip of the iceberg, right? But what you don't see is the depth below it. But most of the time, you should sense the depth. And he brought that up as an example of what a good Bible teacher is, right? As somebody who, they spend weeks and hours of passionate studying in God's Word. And what happens is that you get, you only see just the tip of the iceberg on a Sunday morning or on a Wednesday night Bible study or in a home Bible study, right? You only see the tip of the iceberg, but you should be able to sense the depth below, right, of the passion and the time that went into it, where he's only talking about the best things he came up with that he can share in a limited space of time. But that if you were to ask him, he'd have so much more information to share. Well, as I was listening to Chuck Missler, I could just sense this. It's one of those things that, again, he's so passionate. He was talking about these things, and I'd never heard a Bible teacher talk like that. And well, he said something at the end of one of his sessions, and honestly, this is the piece of advice that changed my life, profoundly influenced me. And he said something, and it's so simple. He said, "Make the Bible your hobby." I was thinking, okay. And he says again, make the Bible your hobby. And I was like, okay, what does he mean by this? And he goes into it, and he goes, look, each of every one of us have hobbies, most likely, right? Doesn't matter what it is. Maybe you like to sail, your boat or something. Maybe you like to go fishing. Maybe you like model airplanes. Maybe you like photography. Doesn't matter, right? He goes, every one of us, most likely, has a hobby or something that we're passionate about. And he goes, I'm willing to bet that you know more about your hobby than the average person. Why is that? Because it's your first love. It's what you're passionate about. It's your love language. It's what you like to spend your time doing. And he said this, right? And he goes, I want to give you a challenge to make the Bible your hobby. Not out of a sense of legalism or something like that, right? And not to replace devotional reading, because he brought it up as a contrast, right? Every one of us should do devotional reading. You need that to nourish your soul, right? They do a Bible reading plan or something like that. But there's something different about doing an in-depth study. And he recommended this. He goes, make the Bible your hobby and continue to do your devotional reading, but add on to that a supplement, a deep study time. So for example, say, just pick any book in the New Testament or Old Testament, right? Pick any book of the Bible, it doesn't matter. But pick that book and get maybe a commentary on it and really dig in deep and study that. Really try to master that book. And you'll find that as you're going through your studies, right, as you begin to compound, that you'll notice that it begins to build on each other like bricks. And you add that to your devotional reading, and he said it'll transform your life. And I remember hearing this, and like I said, when someone's passionate about something, you cannot help but notice that. It's unescapable. It's unavoidable. And I was listening to him say that. He goes, make the Bible your hobby. And I go, okay. And he said, it'll transform your life. I go, I'd like to see a transformation. I'll do it. I'll go for it. So I just picked a book at random. I go, I'll start with the book of Hebrews. And I spent a year studying the book of Hebrews, which sounds ridiculous. Who spends a year studying one book? We see what I did is I had supplemented that on top of my regular Bible reading. So I was still getting a steady diet of consistent variety through the Bible. But on top of that, I added just one book. And the Bible has 66 of them, you guys. But I'm telling you right now, doing just that, an in-depth, deep dive study on the book of Hebrews, it changed my life. Because I was now really wrestling with certain problems. I was going through specific issues and things that I didn't even realize were issues, or things that, what was my opinion on certain things. And I was learning so much, and my walk radically transformed. And when I finished the book of Hebrews, I couldn't get enough. I was like, oh man, I want more. Well, guess what? I just went on to another book. And then what happened is, when I finished that book, I realized, that was so applicable. Like, I learned this in the book of Hebrews. And I wanted to cross-reference and apply, right? And you'll find that as you go through each book, doing deep dive studies like this, right? You'll find that it'll begin to compound. And it'll build one upon another, like I said. And you'll enrich your walk tremendously. It's something that, like I said, it greatly transformed my life profoundly. And I've never looked back. And it's something that I want to now give you the call. Make the Bible your hobby. And I'm not saying this out of a legalistic sense, like, oh, you're less of a Christian if you don't, right? But I think that, we're all called to be disciples, right? Disciples of Christ. And how are you a disciple of Christ? Reading His Word, right? But I think there is a difference between casually reading and also studying. And I think both have benefits. Absolutely both have benefits. I'm not trying to advocate for one over the other. Why not do both? If you have a hobby about something, you find the time to do it, right? And people make fun of me. My wife teases me. She doesn't really make fun of me. It's in a loving way. But it's like I'm always reading my Bible, and it's not out of a sense of, oh, look at me, you guys. Oh, look at that man, that John. He's so righteous. It's not out of that, that sense of like, oh wow, look at him. He's so spiritual. No, it's because it's my passion. It's something that I love doing, and I love talking to people about it. And it overflows, and you'll find that as you do this more often, that passion, like I said before, it'll overflow, and it's contagious. It'll fall onto other people, and then they go, wow, there's something, I kind of like what he's got going on there. I kind of like that. I'm going to do that too. Doesn't matter what it is, right? You could apply this really to anything. If you're passionate enough about something, you cannot help but pour it out on other people and motivate them as well. So I want to give you that call one more time. Make the Bible your hobby, you guys. And I know I'm beating you over the heads. Hopefully I'm not. But I just wanted to say that I'm mainly saying this because it's something that transformed my life so significantly, and I think that it'll transform yours as well. And I think you will be profoundly blessed. So, at any rate, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your day, day or night, whatever, depending on when you're watching this. And God bless you guys. And once again, make the Bible your hobby.